3 spine-chilling horrors revealed. Terrifying secrets of cursed cabins in the haunted woods. Emily could feel the excitement bubbling beneath her skin as she drove down the winding road to the cabin, her long-awaited escape from the city with Mia and Jake. But as they drew closer to their destination, an unsettling tension crept over her. Strange shadows flitted between the trees, vanishing into the underbrush before they could catch a glimpse of them. Rumors swirled in her mind, tales whispered in the dark corners of coffee shops and late-night get-togethers. Missing children, mysterious voices, and sinister encounters. It was the stuff of nightmares. As the cabin came into view, the air thickened. It loomed there, shabby yet oddly charming, surrounded by towering pines that seemed to close in like gatekeepers to an abandoned realm. Emily's heart raced. The weathered wood creaked, groaned, as if sighing under the weight of its history. She shook off the dread, forcing a smile for the kids who bounded out, eager to roam the wild. But those faces carved into the trees made her stomach drop. Were they watching her? The first night fell, enveloping everything in heavy darkness. The wind howled, a sinister lullaby twisted by rustling branches. Laughter danced in the crisp air, but it was fleeting, chilled, fading faster than she could grasp it. Then she noticed the absence of Mia's beloved teddy bear, gone without a trace. Just a few moments earlier, Jake had been chasing fireflies, but now he stood petrified, staring into the black expanse of the woods. "Mom," he whispered, his eyes wide. "Something's out there." A chill swept over Emily, a cold dread wrapping around her heart like a vice. Confident in her friends, she dismissed their worries, but Mike's laughter echoed hollowly. He brushed those fears aside, impatience creeping into his tone. "Just your imagination," he said, but Emily felt the weight of something dark and ancient pressing down on her, tightening like a noose. She always thought Mike was the level-headed one, but now something felt off. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Scouring the dusty attic for a flashlight, she stumbled upon a stack of old newspapers. Goosebumps prickled up her spine as chilling headlines stared back at her. Children vanish without a trace, mysterious howls echo in the night, and legend of the vengeful spirit beware the woods. Sweat dripped down her back. Trust burned like wildfire within their group, but ignorance can be deadly. How many times had they brushed off the warnings? As twilight descended again, the atmosphere thickened. It felt alive, vibrating with anticipation. But then the worst happened. Mia's laughter echoed, sweet and haunting, drifting through the trees and then silence. Emily's pulse quickened. She whipped around, eyes wide, her daughter, gone. Panic surged, raw and relentless. She called for Mia, voice trembling, as shadows danced and swirled around her. Fear clawed at her, relentless. What had they walked into? From the darkened trees, a cold breath ghosted across her neck, a whisper that sent icy fingers down her spine. "You shouldn't have come here." With dread weaving through her veins, she raced deeper into the woods, heart pounding. What sinister force was lurking in the shadows, and who could she trust as the forest closed in around her? Emily stumbled through the underbrush, the darkness clawing at her like a living thing. Every crack of a twig beneath her foot echoed like gunfire in the stillness. She called desperately for Mia. The sound of her own voice was both a comfort and a torment, fading into the dense forest that seemed to swallow her words whole. The whispers floated through the air again, chilling her to the bone. They were soft at first, sounding almost like a child's giggle. But then they twisted, crawling from laughter into something far more sinister. "Mommy," a voice called, eerily similar to Mia's, weaving through the trees. It was a haunting tease that sent goosebumps racing across her skin. Her heart hammering, Emily fought against the rising tide of dread, that threatened to crush her. "Mia!" she shouted, desperation drawing her deeper, away from the feeble light of the cabin which now felt like a distant, mocking memory. Branches clawed at her clothes, and she stumbled through the thicket, branches snagging her hair and pulling her back, as if the forest itself had taken a liking to her despair. Suddenly, the earth beneath her feet felt wrong. The ground was muddied and cold, and she slid, falling hard on her knees. As she struggled to regain her footing, she caught sight of something half buried in the soil, a tattered shoe, recognizable from the last time Mia wore it the day they left for the cabin. A scream clawed at her throat, but she swallowed it down, fighting against the panic that threatened to drown her. "Mia!" she called again, breathless, her throat raw. Nerves frayed, she pressed on. An oppressive weight settled over her, an unseen presence humming with ancient malice. Shadows twisted, their shapes shifting and contorting into vague human forms. She was no longer alone. Ahead, a flicker of light caught her eye. She turned, hope surging within her as she rushed toward it. But when she arrived, it was nothing more than a rotting tree, its bark glowing faintly in the moonlight, as if it were alive, breathing, pulsing with something indiscernible. She leaned in closer, sensing a sickening vibe, as if the tree itself was aware of her presence. Its bark had faces etched into it, screaming, twisted, eternally trapped. "No!" she gasped, stumbling backward, a visceral fear grounding her feet. And then she heard it again, Mia's sweet voice mingling with the whispering trees, drawing her deeper into the heart of the forest. "Mommy, help me!" A figure darted between the trees, small and swift, and Emily's heart leaped. She darted forward, adrenaline driving her. "Mia!" As she ran, the branches reached out like gnarled fingers, snagging at her. The whispering grew louder, enveloping her in a cacophony of overlapping voices, the vengeful spirits of the woods. They echoed warnings of danger and despair, sounding angry, almost mocking. "You should never come here," it hissed, as if the very air pulsated with malevolence. Light flickered from a distance, illuminating a clearing ahead. There, she saw a makeshift altar adorned with jarring trinkets and candles, their flames flicking precariously. A mass of darkness loomed behind it, an indistinct shape shifting in the shadows. Emily's stomach dropped. Could it be responsible for stealing her daughter? "Mia!" she screamed again, a raw, primal need fueling her legs, each heartbeat pounding in her ears like war drums. But as she stepped into the circle of soft light, the shadows retreated. Instead of relief, a heart-stopping realization struck her. It wasn't Mia who had lured her here. No, it was something else, something waiting and watching. The darkness thickened, and the temperature dropped. Arms emerged from the shadows, and distorted faces leered through the canopy above. A figure materialized just beyond the glow, eyes glowing ferociously like embers in the night. Emily felt her breath hitch as it spoke, its voice a chorus of tortured wails. "You shouldn't have come here. You'll never leave." And in that moment, the realization of their fate settled in, a cold weight in her stomach. Would she be the next to join the lost children, or would she save Mia in time? As the shadows closed in, she clung desperately to hope, praying that she could uncover the dark truth about this cursed place before darkness swallowed her whole. But as she braced to confront whatever lurked ahead, she caught sight of something glinting in the dirt, an eerie reflection promising a truth that could shatter everything she believed. What if the woods weren't just haunted? What if they were alive? Emily's heart raced, pounding like war drums in her chest. She backed away from the altar, eyes darting between the twisted figures in the shadows and the silver glint at her feet. Panic gnawed at her, as if the darkness itself were trying to suffocate her. The wails seemed to drown out her thoughts. "You'll never leave," the words echoed cruelly, settling in the marrow of her bones. With trembling hands, she knelt to study the source of the glimmer. A locket, tarnished but ornate, lay half buried in the earth. She reached for it cautiously, the metal cool against her fingertips. As she flipped it open, a faded photograph tumbled out, two smiling faces, a woman and a child. Their joy felt haunting in the hollow silence of the woods. "Mia," she whispered, biting her lip as a lump formed in her throat. Where was her daughter? Was she being held captive by whatever malevolent force had claimed this place? The whispers escalated, their inflections swirling in a frenzy of confusing tones. It felt as if the forest was alive, reacting to her discovery. Suddenly, a figure darted past her in the shadows. Emily jolted to her feet, adrenaline surging. "Mia!" she shouted again, but all that replied was the mockery of the forest, the laughter, familiar yet twisted. The images of the trapped faces in the tree bark flashed in her mind, and she shuddered. "Run!" a distant voice shouted. It didn't sound like Mia's. It was deeper, more authoritative. Panic flooded her, but she forced herself to act. She sprinted towards the source of the voice. The terrain ripped at her ankles, but the imperative to find her daughter drove her forward. The voices thinned into a low, growling chant that resonated in her bones. "Join us, become one forever." They corrupted her mind, trying to siphon her strength, but Emily fought back. She could not succumb to this darkness. Just up ahead, she spotted a clearing. The moonlight bathed the area, revealing a grotesque tableau. Figures lined up, their faces slack and eyes hollow, seeming to await her arrival. Their mouths opened in unison, revealing twisted smiles that sent shivers crawling down her spine. "Mia!" she screamed again, desperation rising like bile. The chilling laughter returned, bouncing off the trees, echoing in her ears. One of the figures stepped forward, lifting its arm toward her. The gesture was inviting, yet laden with ominous intent, as if it could pull her into the void of lost souls. Emily's breath hitched as realization dawned on her. These figures were trapped, just like the faces in the bark. This was a prison of despair, and they were caught in its grasp. Would they seek to pull her down with them? With her heart pounding, Emily turned and ran. The sounds of movement danced behind her, angry whispers rising into a roar. She didn't dare look back. The darkness felt close, clawing at her heels, threatening to wrap around her like a vice. "Help me!" a voice cried out, almost a whisper, as she sprinted through the narrow path. It was a resonant call for assistance, one she recognized. Mia. She surged forward with renewed strength, rushing toward the sound. The woods grew denser, but hope ignited every ounce of fear she felt. "Mia!" she cried, pushing through the curtain of trees. But the shadows shifted and loomed, and she felt an icy grasp at her shoulder. Emily whirled, heart racing, as the darkness surged toward her. "You can't escape. We'll all be together." The twisted creatures seemed to huddle, hungry for her despair. But then she spotted a flicker of light again, this time bright and warm, dancing ahead. Closing her eyes for just a moment, she envisioned Mia's sweet face, the way her laughter lit up the world. She took off, fueled by that vision, barreling toward the beckoning light. What awaited her there? Was it hope, or another trap set by the woods? "Find her, you must hurry." The deep voice thrummed once more, but this time it felt urgent and pleading. As she raced toward the light, she felt the sinister energy shift behind her. The hungry darkness roared, an angry tempest that promised her an eternity of torment if she failed. Would she reach her daughter in time, or would the forest claim them both? There was no time to think, only the drive to survive and the flicker of light leading her deeper into the unknown. Emily sprinted, her legs pumping with pure adrenaline, every muscle straining to reach that beam of hope. The light pulsed ahead, flickering like a beacon in the suffocating darkness. But the shadows behind her were relentless, clawing closer, whispers swelling into an angry chorus that gripped her heart. "Join us! Stay with us!" The words echoed, a sinister invitation that sent chills racing down her spine. It felt like a looming fog, a chilling promise that coiled itself around her, waiting for her to stumble. "Mia!" she yelled, voice hoarse. There was no answer, only that deep, echoing laughter that mocked her fears. Each footfall thudded in her ears, drowning out the frantic beat of her heart as she closed in on the light. Her breath came in sharp bursts, the air growing heavy with dread. Just as she reached the clearing, The light surged, splitting the shadowy veil. Emily halted, stunned. Before her stood a small wooden cabin, weathered and worn, surrounded by thick trees that loomed like sentinels. The cabin's windows glowed with a warm light that floated like a promise of safety. Could this be a refuge? But the whispers shifted. "She's not here, you're alone," the sound taunted her, heavy with deceit. Heart pounding, Emily rushed to the door, every instinct screaming for her to stay away. Her fingers trembled as they brushed the cold, rough wood. Seconds felt like hours. She hesitated, her inner voice fighting against itself. What if this was another trap? But what choice did she have? She turned the handle and pushed the door open. Inside, the air was thick and stagnant, a brazen contrast to the warmth outside. Shadows danced against the walls, flickering dramatically, revealing disturbing images, faces twisted in anguish, trapped within the wooden beams. She gulped, a wave of despair crashing over her. "Help me!" That voice, familiar yet distant. It drifted from somewhere deeper inside the cabin. Was it Mia? This time, the urgency surged through her, drowning her hesitation. "Mia!" Emily called again, louder, her voice breaking. The laughter still rang outside, an ominous backdrop to her isolation. She stepped forward, heart racing as the light dimmed, swallowed by the cabin's ominous depths. A hallway extended before her, and she followed the sound, pulse thrumming in her ears. Each step felt heavier, as if the very floorboards wished to hold her prisoner. "Mia!" she shouted, panic flooding her each time silence answered. The hallway twisted unnaturally, leading her into a room cluttered with old furniture, draped in dust like neglected memories. And at the far end stood a doorway slightly ajar, a strange luminescence escaping from within. Emily's heart sank as she felt the air thicken with dread. She approached the door, every instinct screaming to turn back. "This is wrong," she thought. But the voice called again, more desperate, more urgent. "Mom! Mia!" she cried, pushing the door open. The sight within stopped her cold. A mirror stood in the center of the room, an ancient, ornate frame surrounding it. And in the glass, trapped behind a fragile barrier, stood her daughter, eyes wide with fear, tears streaming down her dirt-smudged cheeks. Mia screamed, pounding against the invisible force. Emily rushed forward, desperation fueling her steps. But as she reached out a hand, the reflection warped and twisted. "Mia!" Emily's scream shattered the heavy air. An icy wind swept through the room, the shadows growing thicker, swirling around her, clawing, biting. "She belongs with us now," they hissed, circling Emily like a flock of hungry vultures. "No," she yelped. "I want to lose her." As she fought to pull Mia free from the trap, the voice returned, deeper and sinister. "Join us or lose her forever." Confusion and terror gripped Emily as she faced a choice more horrifying than any in her life. The weight of despair pressed down, suffocating her. Was it truly her Mia trapped? Or was it a trick, a ruse designed by the forest to ensnare her? In that throbbing moment of despair, the walls of the cabin seemed to pulse, the shadows laughing, the darkness waiting. What terrifying truth awaited behind the mirror? Would Emily break free or become another lost soul bound by the forest's curse? Emily hesitated, heart racing, breath caught in her throat. The walls seemed to close in on her, the shadows now pressing with malevolent force. A low rumble echoed within her, a deep fear that mingled with the whispers, each taunt sharper than the last. "Join us," they crooned, seducing her with promises of peace, of escape. "Mia!" she shouted, desperation spilling into her voice. The sound bounced off the walls, but her daughter's response was swallowed whole by the darkness. Emily reeled back, breathless, torn between instinct and dread. Could she trust what she saw in the mirror? Deathly silence enveloped her, breaking only with the sound of despair that flooded her mind. Every second spent pondering stole her strength. Emily pressed her palms against the cool surface of the mirror, willing it to give, to reveal the truth of her daughter's fate. The glass rippled like water, distorting her reflection, a haunting image that threatened to pull her in. "What do you want from me?" she gasped, a thread of defiance weaving through her panic. As if in response, a figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in darkness, his face hidden. He stepped forward, the shadows clinging to him like a shroud. "Your choice is simple," he said, voice oily and smooth like the surface of the buried secrets. "Join us or lose her forever." Without a moment to process, Emily felt the ground shift beneath her feet, the cabin beginning to tremble with an ancient wrath. The whispers escalated into a frenzied chant, drowning out her thoughts. "She belongs to the dark, come to us no," she cried, fighting against the urge to obey. Emily could feel the icy fingers of fear wrapping around her throat, threatening to squeeze the breath from her lungs. They were waiting for her, anticipating her submission. "Mia!" she screamed again, desperation woven into her plea. The mirror glowed brighter for an instant. Mia's terrified eyes met hers, pleading and full of despair. "Mom, don't let them take me." Horror blazed through Emily, igniting a fire in her veins. She lunged toward the mirror, determined to break the barrier, to tear the glass apart if need be. But the figure blocked her path, laughter echoing like twisted music in her ears. "You cannot save her, not without making a sacrifice," he sneered, the shadows rippling behind him menacingly. "The forest demands a soul." A flash of biting panic surged. What if it was a trap? What if this was the way the forest feasted on her soul, trading one life for another? Yet, as Mia's cries echoed through the intensive din, a primal instinct took over. Emily glanced back at the mirror, eyes searching for a hint of any escape. And there it was, a flicker of light buried beneath the chaos. It beckoned like a dying flame. Was there a way to break the curse? Could she somehow find the strength to fight back against what loomed over her? Waiting with bated breath? Determined, Emily clenched her fists, closing her eyes as the darkness pressed against her. "I won't let you take her," she vowed, the air thickening with her fury. She stepped forward again, ready to confront whatever lay beyond the barrier. But the shadows coiled tighter, laughter shrieking in her ears, drowning out her vow. "You will join us," and then Emily felt it, an electric surge coursing through her, an ancient force that called to her from beyond the mirror. The tug was undeniable. In that moment, the floor beneath her shattered, and she was falling. It was a plunge into nothingness, heading towards an unknown depth as darkness yawned open, consuming everything in its path. What awaited her on the other side? Would she emerge triumphant, or become another whisper lost to the forest forever? The answers lingered just out of reach, hidden deep within the shadows. Emily fell for what felt like an eternity. The darkness surrounded her, a suffocating haze that pulled at her from all sides. Her hands flailed through the void, clawing at nothing. She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by an eerie silence, a void too oppressive for any noise to exist. And then she landed. A hard thud jarred her senses back to life. The ground was cold, damp. She gasped, breaths coming in shuddering gasps as a sharp pain lanced through her ankle. Emily pushed herself up, squinting against a dim, ghostly light that hung above her, a flickering bulb swinging from an unseen wire. Looking around, panic surged anew. The walls were rough-hewn, made of twisted wood that looked like it had been gnawed on by time itself. Shadows curled and twisted, dancing as though alive, mocking her. Alone. She was alone. "Mia!" she cried again, desperation clawing at her throat. Nothing. Only the silence returned, thicker than before. As she struggled to her feet, the shadows whispered, slithering through the air, murmuring secrets she could barely understand. The price must be paid. Join us. Her heart raced anew. What did they want? What price? She stumbled forward, her thoughts a chaos of fear and determination. There was no time to waste. Mia's cries hung in the void, a haunting reminder that she needed to keep fighting. Suddenly, a door materialized in front of her, slightly ajar, an inviting darkness beyond. Was it a way out? She hesitated, dread pooling in her stomach. The whispers escalated to a frenzied chant. urging her on. Open it, join us, no. She shook her head, pushing the darkness back, refusing to listen, refusing to give in. She staggered to the door and peeked inside, squinting through the heavy shadows. What she saw made her blood run cold. In the center of the room lay an altar, carved from ancient stone, worn from ages of use. Candles flickered unevenly, casting grotesque shapes on the walls. But it was the object on the altar that chilled her to the bone. A mirror just like the one at the cabin, but this one was cracked, spiderwebbed. It pulsed with a dark energy, as though it breathed. A whisper tickled the back of her mind. Look closer. Curiosity battled with dread. But Emily stepped inside the room, drawn by the mirror's allure. She needed to understand. Raising her hand, she touched the cracked surface, and the moment she did, the shadows surged, spiraling around her like a tempest. Visions flooded her mind, screaming faces, lost souls trapped in the mirrors, all calling for help, tears streaming down their cheeks. Mia among them, her eyes wide with terror. The shadows paused, the air heavy with anticipation. What will you pay? They whispered. A soul for a soul? Emily's heart thundered. What choice did she have? The weight of her desperation wrapped around her like a vice. Could she even trust that this was real? Was she plunging deeper into the darkness? No, she shouted, shaking her head violently, lowering her gaze back to the altar. Yet, a creeping sensation began to wash over her hunger, an insatiable craving for power. Make the deal, the voices hissed, each syllable dripping with temptation. You can save your child, the words clawed at her resolve. But the thought of Mia trapped, of losing her forever, what would she sacrifice? Emily's breath quickened. The dark energy pulled at her, intoxicating. Could she become stronger? Could she conquer this? What if she dared to make the ultimate sacrifice? The mirror rippled before her, beckoning. Gritting her teeth, she plunged forward, heart racing, ready to confront the darkness swallowing her whole. But would she emerge with Mia? Or would she become another lost soul? Another whisper echoing through the cursed woods? The choices loomed, shrouded in shadows, and somewhere in that dark, a terrible clarity awaited. The air thickened around her as Emily's fingers pressed into the cold, fractured surface of the mirror. It trembled under her touch, a ripple of darkness coursing through it like electric shockwaves. She felt it, the pull of the abyss, the sweet lure of forbidden promise. Could she save Mia? Was this her road to power? But as soon as those thoughts emerged, horror clawed at her insides, the nauseating fear of what she might lose. Suddenly, the mirror sucked her in, her vision twisting like a kaleidoscope. Faces flashed before her, each more haunting than the last, lost souls twisted in agony, their mouths moving in silent screams. She stumbled backward and fell, the shadowy energy collapsing back around her like a suffocating blanket. The whispers coiled back, slinking around her mind with the insistence of a snake. Join us, pay the price, no. She gritted her teeth, forcing herself to focus, to breathe. Feeble shards of hope glimmered in the depths of her panic. Mia needed her. She had to break free of this trap. She owed it to her daughter. A glimmer of light flickered in the periphery. Emily turned sharply. The altar glowed oddly, casting a harder shadow against the walls. It was more than a thing of darkness. It was alive. Heart pounding, she approached, inspecting the damp stone, tracing her fingers over cryptic runes etched into its surface. Worn but somehow familiar. An understanding seeped into her, chilling and vivid. She had seen these markings before, perhaps even in the cabin's mirror. In the flickering light, she spotted a small, bloodied knife. Jagged, it seemed to pulsate with the same energy as the mirror. A soul for a soul echoed from every corner, growing louder, warping her mind. She snatched the knife, her mind racing. What if the voices were lying? What if it was all a trap? But Mia's cries echoed in her heart, a reminder of the sacrifice she must be willing to make. Feed your ambition, they whispered, sweet as honey. The air quivered, and she raised the knife, trembling, unsure. Did she dare? Did she dare gamble her own soul for her daughter? Before she could think, the shadows surged again, pulling at her limbs, dragging her closer to the altar. Panic surged anew. She stumbled, dropping the knife. Please, no. I won't lose her. I won't sacrifice anything. She cried as the shadows enveloped her, fierce and relentless. Something sharp pierced her side, a pain more profound than the knife's bite. She gasped, eyes darting to see what had struck her. But there was nothing there. Only her own shadow loomed ominously, stretching unnaturally from the altar. Join us, the chorus of voices rose, merging into a single, powerful entity. Confusion and terror descended like a suffocating cloud, making it difficult to think, to breathe. Stumbling backward, she caught sight of her reflection in the mirror once more. What stared back wasn't just her visage. It was a grotesque parody of herself, twisted by despair and rage. You can save her, it taunted. But at what cost? Emily's mind raced, a fragment of doubt mingled with the deepening terror. Was she losing herself? Could she even trust her own eyes? As the shadows swirled menacingly, a silent scream clawed at her throat. She could feel the darkness reaching for her very soul, desperate to claim her. Desperate, her eyes caught the knife again. Time slowed. She could feel the heat radiating from the altar. A storm of fear and sacrifice whirled within her. Do it. The mirror's reflection chanted, voice echoing around her. Join them and gain unimaginable power. The shadows lunged toward her, threatening to overwhelm her, to swallow her whole. Would she fight or would she surrender? In that moment, as darkness clawed at her sanity, Emily knew she had to make a choice. She gripped the knife tightly, heart racing. What am I willing to lose? And as the mirror pulsed violently, illuminating a path hidden from view, clarity struck. But a new chill tinged her thoughts. What if it wasn't just her soul at stake? What if Mia was trapped by far worse? As the abyss beckoned her forward, the truth lurked in the shadows, waiting to reveal itself. The moment froze around Emily, her heart thudding in time with the shadow's pulse. The whispers rose and fell, the tide of despair crashing over her like waves against a fragile shore. Join us echoed, each syllable heavy with temptation and dread. She gritted her teeth, tearing her gaze from the mirror, the blade feeling like ice in her hand. No, she breathed, barely a whisper. I won't let you take me. But the shadows pressed forward, pliable and insistent, wrapping around her legs and pulling down. The air thickened, suffocating her resolve. Emily stumbled, her mind racing. It felt as if the walls were closing in, the stone altar looming larger, a gaping maw waiting to consume her whole. Feed your ambition, the voices cooed, a sickening lullaby that crawled under her skin. Your child. Rescue her. Emily fought against the shadows, awareness sparking like lightning. What if Mia was trapped not just in darkness, but entangled in something even more malevolent? What if saving her would mean losing herself forever? With renewed fury, she lunged toward the altar, where the bloodied knife shone, alluring and horrifying all at once. What had it done? What souls had it claimed? The creativity of her horror mingled with the knife's seductive promise. She backed away, breath quickening, each thump of her heart a mantra. She wouldn't become a monster. But no choice felt right. Fear and love knotted together in her gut as the shadows tightened around her, whispering promises of power, of a sweet release from despair. She glanced back at the mirror, where those lost souls twisted in agony seemed to reach through the glass, their faces a tapestry of tormented longing. Help me, a faint voice slipped through the din. Was it Mia? It was her daughter's voice, delicate and desperate, like a flower wilting in the dark. Emily's breath caught deep in her throat. At that moment, all her doubts crystallized into one horrid truth. The knife could save her, but it could also be the instrument of her doom. She gripped the handle tighter, knuckles whitening. Emily had to fight. The darkness around her grew fierce, claws made of shadow grasping at her, drawing closer. She could feel it wanting to swallow her whole, to add her to the mirror's collection of lost souls. Join us, they teased, the edges of their voices sharp, slicing through her resolve. In desperation, Emily let a scream escape her lips, a raw, primal sound that resonated through the chamber. With all her might, she thrust the knife forward into the altar, pressing down, forcing the energy to explode in a burst of light. For a heartbeat, silence enveloped her, the shadows retreating as if burned by a sudden dawn. But then, a low growl rippled from within the altar, and the mirror bucked, cracking down the center like ice breaking beneath a weight. Those tortured faces grinned, eyes dark and hollow locking onto Emily. Her heart raced as a vision collided with reality. Mia stood behind the glass, her body twisted and her face pale as moonlight, yet her eyes blazed with life, pleading and terrified. "Mom!" she cried, the sound echoing as if from a great distance. "Help me!" Emily's breath quickened. "Mia!" But before she could process what to do next, the altar convulsed and spewed dark tendrils around Emily's wrists, wrapping her in shackles of swirling void. The mirror shattered before her eyes, shattering their fleeting moment. A vast emptiness opened, sending a chill washing over her. She was barefoot on the brink of an endless void, and in that moment, every push towards rescue felt like a descent into madness. "Mia," she rasped, feeling her resolve falter. Would she dive into that chaos? Would she let the same darkness that had threatened to claim her ensure her daughter's salvation? The shadows whirled in a violent cyclone, and Emily's thoughts spiraled with them. One last push could bring her closer or tear them both apart. Emily felt the shadows tremble, alive with unspoken promises. The choice loomed ahead of her, monstrous and unfathomable. What awaited should she choose the abyss? And, in that supreme moment, she understood. The true horror was not just the darkness, but what it could create within her. The darkness whispered sweetly, a deceptive lull trembling in the air. Emily's heart thudded like a war drum, every beat a desperate plea to turn back. But in the vast emptiness, shadows beckoned, twisting and curling like smoke. Her grip on the knife became a lifeline, but also a tether to unseen horrors. "Don't let go," Mia's voice lingered, full of urgency. As the tendrils surged, they burned against her skin, leaving trails of ice. Panic set in, clawing at her throat. "Mia!" she shouted, tears mingling with the sweat on her brow. "I'm coming!" With every ounce of strength, she forced the knife down, plunging it into the altar one last time. A flash erupted, blinding her momentarily. Voices shrieked, crackling like lightning. The shattered mirror trembled, pieces falling into the abyss with a sound like falling teeth. But when the light faded, darkness did not retreat. It surged, hungry and ravenous, swallowing everything in its path, including the fragments of what used to be the mirror. A world of nightmares opened beneath her feet. Struggling against the shadows, Emily screamed, tearing her eyes away from the spattering chaos and the howling voices. She searched for a sign of Mia, scanning the void that had devoured the room. "Mia?" she called, her voice hoarse. "Please, please." The air thickened. It felt alive, the darkness wrapping around her in coils, squeezing tighter with each labored breath. Then, from the depths of the shadows emerged a figure. Tall and wraith-like, its form flickered like a dying flame. It wore the faces of the lost hollow eyes and twisted mouths voicing both agony and menace. Emily stumbled back as the creature reached towards her, fingers elongated, claw-like, trailing darkness like smoke. "Offer your will," it hissed, the voices of the damned weaving through its tone. "In return, we will save your child." Temptation whirled through Emily, heavy like fog. Could she trade her soul for Mia's safety? Would she be the price? The abyss stirred, alive with anticipation. The air shimmered with dark possibilities, a cruel gasp echoing in the emptiness. "No!" she screamed, shaking her head to banish the thoughts. The creature stumbled back, obviously affected by her refusal, its growls vibrating in tune with her terror. "Stay. Stay and seek power," it coaxed. "Or leave her to the darkness," Emily faltered. The weight of her decision pressed down on her, and panic surged anew. She had already lost so much. Could she bear to lose everything? "Mia!" she cried again, desperation tearing through her voice. I'll save you. I promise. Sparks of defiance flickered within her as she stared into the creature's abyssal gaze. In that moment, she understood nothing was certain, but even in despair, there was a flicker of hope. But suddenly, in that swirling tempest of emotions, the ground beneath her trembled, a monstrous heartbeat echoing in the silence. With a swift, violent surge, the shadows lunged forward, trying to pull her into their eternal grasp. Emily fought back, the knife radiating warmth. Panic and thrill fought for dominance. And then she saw Mia not through the shattered remnants of the mirror but emerging behind the figure, her small frame silhouetted against the chaos. "Mom!" she cried, a question and a plea all at once. The creature reacted, twisting to face the new light, eyes pinning Emily like a fly in its web. Instinct gave way to survival as the shadows writhed and slithered, a cacophony of anguish erupting from the depths. Emily's decision loomed, as terrifying as it was vital. Could she face this darkness head-on and embrace the unknown? Or would it consume everything she loved? The choice was hers. A rift of darkness yawned wide, an inviting treachery. "Join us," the entity murmured, insistent. With a quickening pulse and a head full of fear, Emily made a choice that could either save her daughter or destroy them both. But what insidious fate lay ahead in the depths of that dark invitation? Emily's heart thundered in her chest, each beat a desperate reminder of the choice ahead. She felt her resolve hardening, shaped by love and unyielding determination. "I will not lose you," she screamed, a fierce and primal need filling her voice. Whatever this darkness was, it would not take her daughter without a fight. The shadows lunged, grasping at her limbs like the clawing hands of the damned. "Join us!" the entity hissed, its voice a chorus of the lost, the echo of countless souls begging for release. Yet, through the tempest of despair, Emily squeezed her eyes shut, gathering her breath. In that moment, something shifted. When she opened her eyes, she saw Mia standing defiantly behind the wraith-like figure, unyielding in her innocence. That flicker of guidance gave Emily strength. A surge of light pooled in her chest, pushing against the oppressive darkness that threatened to consume them. "Mia, hold on," she shouted. But just as she lunged forward, the entity stepped between them, its form swelling with dark power, void of every good thing that existed. For a heartbeat, the world hung suspended. A deep breath caught amid swirling shadows. Then came a terrible eruption of noise, the scream of 1,000 trapped souls egging it on. The air crackled with malevolence, and Emily felt an urge to submit. "Just give in." The shadows cooed sweetly, weaving their silent promises. Yet the memories flooded back. Mia's laughter, brushing hair away from her little face, bedtime stories, the warmth of their shared moments. Emily shook her head, rejecting the whispers that dripped with sweet deceit. "No, you are not my daughter," she shouted, gathering every ounce of love and defiance into her voice. She drew the knife close, the metal cool but resolute in her grip. It shone with purpose, reflecting the soft glow of Mia behind the monstrous figure. The darkness recoiled. A sound like shattered glass echoed through the air, reverberating with anguish. "You dare defy us?" the entity shrieked as shadows hissed angrily, crawling back, swirling with confusion and rage. Emily pressed forward, driven by the heart of a warrior. "You don't get to take her. You will not win." She plunged the knife into the wooden altar, driven by fierce love and rage. An explosion of light erupted from the blade, forcing a rift into the darkness. The entity screeched, the sound ricocheting through the swirling void, like a cry of a lost soul fighting against its own doom. In that instant, as the darkness faltered, a break opened between Emily and Mia. A warm, golden light radiated from the altar, wrapping around Emily, embracing her with hope and strength. "Mom!" Mia's voice rose above the chaos, clearer, closer. The shadows writhed. The air was thick with discord as Emily locked eyes with her daughter. "I'm here. I'm coming," she cried, charging toward Mia, pouring every ounce of determination into that leap. With the knife still vibrating at her side, Emily felt its energy surge, pouring into the very ground beneath her feet. The world shuddered. The shadows were collapsing, the crushing weight of despair breaking apart, pieces splintering into shimmering dust. Mia wailed, her tiny hands reaching toward her mother. Emily's heart twisted at the sight, an overwhelming surge of love propelling her forward. Just as she closed the distance, the entity launched forward one final time, shadowy fingers grasping desperately for Emily, undoing all they had failed to keep. "You will pay," it roared, closing in all around them. But Emily would not allow it. It launched her into the light, every muscle straining, a force of pure devotion colliding with the darkness. As she reached out, the knife pulsed again, creating a barrier of light. Mia's hands met hers at that moment, and the world exploded in a wash of incandescent white. All sounds ceased. Dread fell away, evaporated by the warmth engulfing them. It was a cocoon of bliss, no shadows, no whispers, only love. And then Emily blinked. The familiar warmth of the sun kissed her face, fresh with dew. She was outside. In front of her stood the cabin, and Mia alive, safe, eyes bright and full of joy. Mia exclaimed, darting into Emily's arms, wrapping around her tightly as tears of relief spilled down Emily's cheeks. "You found me." Emily held her daughter, sobbing with gratitude. They were safe, wrapped in the embrace of sunlight amidst the thick woods that felt different now, not suffocating, but breathing, alive, and most importantly, free. The old cabin stood quietly in the backdrop, but its shadow no longer felt haunting. The pulsating warmth of their victory lit up the world around them as they took a step back onto solid ground, hearts lighter, spirits unburdened. Looking back at the cabin, at the memories of fear and darkness, Emily knew they had conquered. The curse had been broken, not through sacrifice, but through the unyielding love a mother had for her child. Hand in hand, they walked away from the woods, stronger than ever, ready for what lay ahead. As the sun set behind them, the forest whispered softly, not of despair or darkness, but of stories untold, waiting for the next explorer ready to discover the wood's hidden heart. And there was peace. Now, if you love this heart-pounding conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories we have lined up. Yes, right now. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and help us grow. We want to hear your reactions, theories. Flood the comments section. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this thrilling conclusion with you. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel, so show your support now.